Hello there. Good evening. Uh, Today I'd like to continue the conversation in regards to Ukraine and the Russian Federation, with Ukraine being partially backed up by the nations that are in alliance with NATO. Um, Obviously, the whole problem there isn't going to get resolved even when uh, the tools of destruction are put away. Um, the Russians essentially, I won't say giving up on that part of the campaign, which was to move into Kiev and replace the government, specifically Zelensky. Uh, I would imagine Zelensky, if he got a phone call and it had Vladimir Putin's number showing up on it, that he wouldn't answer it because Vladimir Putin is probably very, very mad with him. And he's not the kind of guy you want to be, making very, very mad at you. Um, it is an unusual move. I must admit the Russians abandoning the that project of capturing Kiev. They seem to be more focused on eastern Ukraine right now. There isn't a whole lot there, and especially after all those years of civil war between the Russian separatists and the Ukrainian independence militias. It really is rubble, ruin, and chaos. Um, I don't understand why the Russians would be wanting to focus on that. And there is talk that they want to unite their forces in the southeast with the ones in the northeast and take over Kharkiv. They have been trying. Kharkiv, last I checked, is still in Ukrainian hands. Um, Even so, it's the Russians expanding its borders, but they're not really gaining any significant territory, and perhaps they can spin it into a propaganda piece where the Russians tell their own people that this is a great victory against the West. Look what we've accomplished. Blah blah blah. And anyone who doesn't agree with that gets thrown in jail for 9 years or something like that. Um, at this point, it must be a tough sell. Like, I've watched a lot of Russian propaganda over the years. Western propaganda is mind-numbingly bad too, but they're both terrible. And the thing is, this whole Ukrainian conflict, there's a lot of opinionated people out there voicing their concerns, and there's many different things to think about when it comes to this particular conflict in the world. Um, that A lot of people, they don't think it impacts them. They go, it's so far away. This kind of stuff is happening all the time. We need to consolidate our economy, fix things over here, and maybe when you're at the liquor store, you donate a couple of bucks to the Ukrainian effort, buy some Ukrainian vodka. I had some. Um, it wasn't exceptional vodka. Vodka's vodka, really, for the most part, unless you get a really awful one like Bulls or something. Ooh, that's a bad vodka. But the Ukrainian ones, it's okay. But that's all it is. It's a vodka. Um, anyway, yeah, I am rather surprised that the Russians aren't moving where I figured they would be going, which makes more sense, which would be to conquer the all of the south of the Ukraine surrounding the Black Sea. That is where strategically they would be better off. They would have entire access to the Black Sea, which they could deny the Ukrainians, punish them for what they would consider disobedience, which would be devastating to the Ukrainian economy. This whole war has been devastating to both economies, but NATO is and the European Union will be much more favorable in recuperating the Ukrainian economy, whereas the Russians, they don't really have any allies that are going to give them the kind of economic relief that they will need. Their staunch supporters in the West do not have the influence, power, or money. Not that they don't have money, but they don't have enough of it to change the tide of what is popular belief in Western media, the politicians, the business people here. A lot of money's been made out of this war, and the apprehension of assets from the Russians, most specifically yachts. Whenever you hear someone talking about the oligarchs of Russia, that their luxury yachts are being taken, basically taken from them, which are supposedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But they have other things too, and yeah. So, that actually is a big economic boost for countries, and may in fact be incentive to poke the bear on this one. The bear, Russia, is backed into a corner. I'm not defending what they did in the slightest, but I will say that there is reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. Because there are too many of the old crowd who have not forgiven the Russians for the things they've done, don't like their weapons programs because they have a few doomsday devices of their own. And they feel as though the only way there can be peace and prosperity along the world is if there is only one government and one body that decides everything. Now, that isn't actually possible, but it is in the sense that all the allied nations are under one banner, and this giant entity of a government organization has many voices with many different opinions, but it acts as a singular entity. And right now, it does look promising that it is going to be the West. And a lot of Russia's former satellite states that were part of the Soviet Union have gone over to the Western NATO, their camp. And that is likely never going to change, except with regime change, if Putin had the ability to do so. A lot of people said, well, if Putin wanted to do something, he could have done it, blah, blah, blah. That isn't true. A major victory for him would be not only to capture the city of Kiev, and some people believe that that could be a feint, that them pulling their forces out is meant to trick the Ukrainian army and the NATO supervisors into believing that they are not interested in that target anymore. Because, as some people know, probably 1/10 of the Russian military is actually in Ukraine. The rest of it is still in Russia, doing whatever it is they do. But that seems unlikely. It seems very medieval way of going about warfare these days, and any kind of significant troop movement would be noticed. And those sophisticated weapons that the Russians have are essentially unusable because they're not very interested in World War III either. That's why they've mostly played by, I won't say the rules, but the guidelines set by every interested party. Every decision has been made, and there are reasons why certain things don't get done. There's a reason why there isn't twice as many Russian soldiers in Ukraine, because it was decided upon by the Western powers that they weren't allowed to have that many soldiers there. They weren't allowed to have specific equipment that would help them win a decisive victory. In all likelihood, I don't believe the Ukrainian generals are up to the task of fighting an actual war. Militia guerrilla tactics would be what they were better at, so it's more than likely that a few NATO generals, by the way, general is not the highest rank in the army, but anyway, are actually being loaned to the Ukraine to better manage their resources as far as manpower, equipment, food supplies, everything they need. And it is definitely Ukraine's war. They have fought it themselves in that theater. In the other theater, which impacts the other one, is the economic one, which has been devastating for Russia, and that's really what's taken the steam out of their military capability. The thing is, what a lot of people don't understand is they have the ability to affect our economy too. You wouldn't think it, but they do. They have, allies that even the Russians don't trust. The Russians don't even trust themselves, so they don't trust these other nations that are anti-Western. You can name some in South America. You can name China. You can name some in Africa, those sort of places. And really, China's the only one with a big push. It, will do things that it's in its own best interest, but that will have the side benefit of aiding the Russians, because it's always said that the U.S. has placed sanctions on this particular country for blah 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 reasons, but those countries place sanctions on us all the time. Inflation, that's a thing that's becoming a more and more wide topic and more talked about. And I really haven't seen anything too drastic yet. There is some trimming of the fat, of course. Things they're not quite like what they were. And, you could say, well, for example, Stephen Harper. Nobody liked him, or very few people liked him. But he ran the economy better than Justin Trudeau did. Now, they are both in two different eras of geopolitical entanglements. But the fact remains, Canada was economically stronger under Stephen Harper than it is under Justin Trudeau. And my honest opinion is that Trudeau should be sacked. Now, his sycophants, they're going to make that almost impossible to do, which essentially makes him a dictator. Maybe every decision he makes doesn't go through, or maybe members in his own party block him from doing certain things. But if you establish yourself as a leader and you are not to be removed and most of your decisions go through, then, whether you're a brutal dictator or just a dictator is two different things. And I do believe that Justin Trudeau has the capability of being a brutal dictator, as brutal as Vladimir Putin. is being right now, if given the right circumstances. When I say the right circumstances, I mean the appropriate things to do at a specific time. The race for the Arctic Circle is quite a significant one, and one doesn't know how obsessed the Canadian government and the Americans are with keeping that territory, because a lot few people know this. A lot of the Arctic Circle, the Russians, they have ice, a lot of ice up there, of course, but under that ice is actually land. Whereas in Canada, it's above Canada, it's not land. That's just ice. So when it melts away, theoretically, it might become open sea. And then, it's basically like, okay, 100 odd years ago, we didn't see this coming, but at any rate, you're not getting it. It's not, we're losing territory. That's not what's happening. And that may be where the desperation of someone like Justin Trudeau, who has the ability to, the hindsight to see this coming, may have differing opinions despite his pleasant demeanor. And the thing is, there's a lot at stake, and I have made the point that there are angry men out there in power with nuclear weapons, along with other sort of nasty stuff. So, that's not a good thing. And discipline, self-control, those are all important things and very strictly enforced in the military. But it is not an absolute. Blind rage most certainly exists in the Army. Without a doubt, even the highest ranking officer, general, admiral, Air Force commander, whatever you want to name them, they may do something that would seem brash, unreasonable, regrettable. And with Russia's power diminishing and their inability to capture their goals, especially in a timely manner, but any manner whatsoever at this point in time, it does not bode well for Russia, because they were at their greatest strength in the world when they were the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia was diminished in power, and losing this war will diminish them again. And then the likelihood of them climbing back up that ladder, it grows less and less likely. And, their military leaders will have noticed this. And, it may just be a incredibly brash decision waiting around the corner, where Russian military leaders have decided to do something that is regrettable for everybody. You might be surprised that in the news it's like they've gone and done something, and it was a very I don't know. I have no idea. I can't imagine the Russians losing this war in Ukraine, or not getting everything they wanted, or even most of what they wanted, and walking away like nothing happened here. Whatever, back to business. No, this grudge will most certainly last as long as Putin is alive in the Kremlin, and I don't believe if the Russian forces pack their bags and head back home, which is what they should do, and maybe even keep those outlying eastern Ukrainian territories. I don't believe for a second that doesn't mean the idea of revenge has gone away. A lot of people think, well, if they don't talk about it in the media, then it doesn't exist. It's like how quickly people forget. And it's a very silly thing to do, to forget important things like that. Um, yeah, so, the main objectives that Russia will have had are not being fulfilled. At this point in time, it looks good that they're staying away from Kiev. Zelensky will not be removed by Putin. He may be replaced by his own government internally. That wouldn't be the same thing at all, because then Zelensky could just fade into the background and, still pull strings and live a comfortable life, which would be the opposite of what Putin would want. In fact, Putin and the Russian army would like to capture Zelensky and show the world what happens to countries that disobey the decree of the Russian government. Of course, that's not going to happen because Zelensky's going to turn tail and run, and he should. It's lousy thing it was to do, but that is what he should do if there was any possibility of him being captured. There's that, and they are not taking the southern part of the western southern part of the Ukraine as vigorously as a lot of people thought. It does appear that their engines are running out of gas, their military war machine. One does need to remember, though, the West is performing its own acts of propaganda. So both sides are telling their own people that they're winning. So you gotta, just use logic and don't trust maps on the internet, even from well-known sources, that this is where troop movements are, this is where it's Russian or Ukrainian held territory, because it could be the matter of hours where an army vacates, is defeated, or simply power is agreed upon to switch hands in order to stop what essentially would be a bloodbath. So there's lots of things to think about, and getting back to this whole it affecting our economy, inflation, strict measures in some regards. I mean, mask mandates have been lifted. COVID seems to be going on the back burner for now. People are starting to believe things are getting back to normal. Perhaps inflation hasn't really affected them too much. It hasn't affected me that much. For other people, it has, because there's a lot of very, very poor people who, to be perfectly honest with you, there's a reason they're very, very poor most of the time. It's because they don't try. If you try, you can make money in this country, and in most parts of the United States, you can make money if you try. You don't have to be stuck in a position where, you're not smart enough to figure out ways of how to make money, or anything of that sort. And I don't mean bad things. I mean, there are jobs everywhere. They always need people to do things. Like, you could be a mover, for example. Any idiot can do that, and you can make up to $25-$30 an hour doing it if you're good enough. And that's a simple example. And trust me, if you're pulling down $30 an hour here in Canada, unless you've got an addiction to takeout food or something like that, or student loans or something like that, or you bought a big expensive car and now electric cars moving in fast, and your car is depreciating in value because it runs on gas. Unless you did something stupid like that, you should be able to live a comfortable life, no problem. I mean, I know I'm living a relatively comfortable life. I mean, I got some personal problems, but aside from that, financially, I'm doing just fine. Um, so, enough about me. The subject at hand is still uncertain. We don't know what Russia's going to do, but like a rat that's been cornered, um, they expect it to come out kicking and screaming. Um, that's all I've got to say for now. And I will talk to you people later. Have a good one.